This happened a few months ago. I had been looking forward to it for weeks. I was not an expert camper, but I had spent enough weekends outdoors to know what I was doing. We found this secluded forest with a beautiful lake, and it seemed perfect for a getaway. We set up our tents as twilight settled over the towering pines, the sky painted in shades of orange and purple. Maybe I was too eager to shake off the school year stress, but I've never stopped thinking about it. As night fell, we gathered around the fire. We roasted marshmallows and shared stories. I noticed rustling in the bushes nearby. It felt odd, but I shrugged it off. The forest was alive, right? That's what I told myself. I thought it was just deer or raccoons. But the sound was different. A rhythmic tapping followed by an unsettling silence. I glanced at my friends, their laughter cutting through the dark, unaware of the growing tension in the air. The second night we huddled around the fire again. Darkness clung to the trees, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. The whispers started. I tried to focus on the laughter, but the whispers blew through the branches, too soft to catch. Something wasn't right. I remember feeling cold as I tried to call out to my friends, but they seemed distracted. Then one of them stood up, heading to the trees, and I didn't think much of it, at first. I checked my watch. It was late. I called out to him, but my voice faded into the forest. He didn't come back. Panic set in. I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe he just went further to explore. I waited, heart racing, hoping he'd return. He did not. One by one, my friends began to vanish. I heard frantic calls for help echoing back, but they sounded dull, as if swallowed by the trees themselves. I felt something pull at me, and I wasn't sure whether it was fear or something else entirely. I stumbled back to our camp, frantically searching through the darkness. I think I called their names, but the air felt thicker, as if the forest was absorbing my cries. Then I found it, an ancient stone half buried in roots. My fingers brushed against the cool surface. I felt a strange connection, like it was alive in a way I couldn't understand. Where were they? What was happening? The forest became unnaturally still, like it was holding its breath. That's when it hit me. I think we've trespassed into something we shouldn't have. Something waiting for us. I felt the weight of time shifting. We had 10 minutes left. Then, I heard another rustle behind me. My breath caught. I turned slowly, heart pounding. The shadows shifted, and I could swear I saw something tall and dark standing among the trees. I didn't stay to see more. I ran. I sprinted back towards the lake, my feet pounding the ground. But the whispers followed me. They echoed in my mind, urging me deeper into the woods. The moonlight flickered through the branches. I felt eyes on me. I glanced back one last time. There was nothing. I reached the camp, and it was empty. The fire was dying. I yelled my friends' names, but only the forest replied. The whispers turned into laughter, sharp and cruel. I knew I was not alone. I couldn't just stand there. I had to move. I grabbed a flashlight from my backpack, hoping it would fend off the darkness. The beam cut through the trees, but all I found was more shadow. I called out once more, desperation creeping into my voice. "Guys, where are you?" Silence. Just that dreadful stillness. I could almost feel the forest pressing down on me, heavy with secrets. I took a shaky breath and decided to retrace my steps. Maybe if I found the stone again, I could make sense of what was happening. I picked a direction, walking carefully, listening for any familiar voices. The laughter from before echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of their absence. I moved through the underbrush, flashlight sweeping as I went. Each rustle made me jump. The whispers were louder now, wrapping around me like a cold shroud. Then I saw it, the stone. It looked even more imposing under the beam of light. The moss-covered surface seemed to pulsate, inviting yet threatening. As I approached, I noticed something strange. Carved into the stone were symbols. They looked ancient, almost alive, as if they were shifting when looked at directly. What were they trying to tell me? I reached out, tracing the carvings with my fingertips. My mind raced. Were these the answers? I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had taken my friends was linked to this stone. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to calm my frantic thoughts. But then I heard it. A soft, hushed voice whispering my name. My eyes shot open. "Help me." Was it a trick? I couldn't tell. The voice sounded like one of my friends. I hesitated, torn between running back to the path I had come from and following the sound. If it was them, I couldn't leave them behind. "Is that you?" I shouted, but the voice faded away, swallowed by the trees. The sense of urgency grew. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. I had to take the risk. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and followed the sound, weaving between the trees. Every step felt heavier. The whispers grew more frantic, urging me on. "Help us!" My heart was racing. I stumbled over roots and branches, my flashlight beam flickering as I tried to maintain focus. The voice led me deeper into the woods, and against all reason I pressed on. Suddenly the ground beneath my feet shifted. I lost my balance and fell to my knees. A crackle of energy jolted through me. I looked up, and everything changed. Before me stood a clearing, illuminated by the moonlight, and in the center, there they were, my friends standing in a circle, faces blank, eyes unfocused. They were not alone. Something hunched behind them, shrouded in shadow, watching me. "Stop!" I called, but it came out more like a plea. They didn't move. It felt like time had stopped. And then everything went dark. I gasped, my heart racing. The darkness felt alive, shifting and creeping around me like fingers. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear the faint rustling of leaves. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but something deep inside urged me to stay. What had just happened? Then I felt it, a cold hand on my shoulder. I froze, my body going rigid. The warmth of the moonlight had vanished, replaced by an icy chill. I spun around, swinging my flashlight in wild arcs. There was nothing. "Guys!" The word escaped my lips in a tremor. My voice felt small against the vastness of the forest. No response. I strained to make out anything, searching the shadows for a sign of my friends. "Help! Please!" I shouted again, hoping that they would hear me. With a determined breath, I forced myself to think clearly. They had to be close, but in the silence that enveloped me, I could feel the weight of dread settling in my chest. I took a step forward, trying to find my way back to the clearing. The symbols on the stone echoed in my mind. Were they a warning or a clue? As I moved cautiously, the whispers returned, surrounding me again. This time they carried urgency. "Come closer." It was as if the forest itself beckoned me to delve deeper into the unknown. My heart raced. I pushed through thorny branches and soaked earth, the flashlight beam flickering as if in response to my escalating fear. I had to find them. Desperation clawed at my throat, giving me no choice but to keep moving. And that's when I stumbled onto something strange. It was a half-buried object, glinting in the weak light of my flashlight. I knelt down to get a better look. A pendant, engraved with the same symbols I had seen on the stone. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. I felt a surge of energy course through me, and suddenly the darkness lifted, revealing the clearing once more. My friends were still there, like phantoms in the night, unmoving. But now I could see the shadowy figure more clearly. It loomed behind them, eyes glinting like coals in the dark. "Get away from them!" I yelled, holding up the pendant like a talisman. The figure paused, its head tilting slightly, almost curious. A chilling moment passed where silence reigned again. My friends still didn't react. Then, with a movement so swift I barely registered it, the figure lunged forward. Adrenaline surged through my veins and I surged after it, the pendant clutched tightly in my fist. No way was I letting whatever that was take my friends. But as I dove forward, something shifted. The forest around me began to dissolve into shadow, swirling like smoke. I could see the fear in my friends' faces now. Their eyes were wide, pleading. "Stay with me," I shouted frantically, not understanding what was happening. In that chaotic moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting for them. I was fighting for my own survival, too. The whispers grew louder and transformed into cries. "Help!" That's when I felt it. The ground beneath me solidified just as I pushed through the darkness, and the world snapped back into focus. Now it wasn't just a clearing. It was an endless, swirling abyss. I was trapped. I blinked, trying to shake off the disorientation that gripped me like a vice. The swirling darkness around me was suffocating, a thick mist that made it hard to breathe. Panic surged, and I forced myself to look for some form of escape. My flashlight barely penetrated the gloom, illuminating nothing but shadows. "Guys!" I cried again, fighting the creeping dread in my chest. I had to believe they were here somewhere. I took a cautious step forward, clutching the pendant like a shield. It felt warm against my palm, and I tried to draw strength from it. Then a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned, heart racing. Was it one of my friends? No, it was the shadowy figure, closer now. It loomed at the edge of my flashlight's glow, more menacing than before. A low growl rumbled through the air, sending chills racing down my spine. "Get back!" I yelled, trying to sound bolder than I felt. But the figure remained still, studying me with those coal-like eyes. I felt its intention. Whatever it was, it wouldn't surrender without a fight. In the back of my mind, the whispers intensified, swirling into an unbearable cacophony. "You have to choose," they hissed, mixing with the growl of the creature. I strained to understand, an overwhelming sense of urgency tugging at me. Choose what? Suddenly, I remembered the symbols on the pendant. What if it was more than just a charm? There had to be an answer hidden within the design. Desperation propelled me forward, and I began to trace my fingers over the intricate patterns. The moment I touched the central symbol, the pendant vibrated in my hand. The figure recoiled, and a small part of me felt triumphant. "What are you?" I demanded. I needed to assert control, to show that I wasn't just a victim. The pendant pulsed again, and the darkness began to retreat slightly. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. The shadows shifted, morphing into twisted shapes that reached out for me. I stumbled back, aware that I was fighting against something far beyond my comprehension. Whatever power I had awakened, it wasn't enough. "Please, just let them go," I shouted into the void, hoping against hope. The growling intensified, reverberating like thunder. I felt a sense of urgency. Time was running out. Then everything went dark. One moment I had been gripping the pendant tight, and the next I was enveloped in silence. My flashlight flickered out entirely, plunging me into a deep void where I could no longer sense the presence of my friends or the dark figure. The whispers were gone, leaving only a deafening stillness that pressed against my ears like an oppressive blanket. "Hello?" I called, but my voice echoed back, distorted and lonely. Adrenaline flooded through me again. I fumbled in the dark, hands outstretched, searching for anything solid, any sign of hope. That's when I felt a tugging sensation at my sleeve. I spun around, heart pounding wildly. It couldn't be. My breath hitched as I felt a cool breath wash over my neck. Then I heard a voice. My friend's voice, weak and raspy. "Help!" I had to find them. But what awaited me in the shadows? I turned towards the voice, my heart racing. "Where are you?" I whispered, straining to hear any hint of an answer. What happened? I needed to keep my voice steady, but fear clawed at my throat. "Over here." It was faint, but I knew I had to follow it. I moved gingerly, scanning the darkness around me. The weight of silence felt suffocating, prickling at my skin. With every step, I felt the pull of fear and urgency. My friends were out there, and I had to reach them before whatever lurked in the shadows reached us. I reached out into the thick air, brushing against a rough tree trunk. My fingers traced the bark, grounding me momentarily. But then I felt something shift behind me. A presence. I whipped around, the memory of the growling figure flooding back. I shivered, my grip tightening on the pendant. "Stay calm," I murmured to myself, though the tremor in my voice betrayed my concern. I took a deep breath and pressed on toward the sound of my friend's voice, the gentle tugging at my sleeve guiding me like a lifeline. "Help me." She sounded closer, but there was panic in her tone, and I felt my heart drop. "It's getting worse." "What's getting worse?" I called back, trying to increase my pace without losing my balance. The shadows felt alive, closing in on me, whispering their warnings. Each footfall echoed against the trees, a hollow reminder of my growing isolation. "Just hurry!" There was desperation in her tone. I could sense it through the darkness, like a beacon pulling me back to safety. Suddenly the air shifted and a cold gust blew past me, sending chills down my spine. It felt like a warning, but of what? I stumbled, nearly losing my footing, and in that moment, I saw it. A flicker of light. A pale glimmer deep within the forest. That had to be them. It was faint, almost like a candle's flame, but real enough to give me hope. I charged toward it, moving faster now, the pendant pulsing against my chest, guiding me forward. As I approached, the light grew brighter and clearer. "Lindsay!" I yelled, my voice cutting through the gloom. I heard a rustle, then a muffled cry. I wasn't far now, but just as I reached the clearing, everything shifted. The shadows lurched forward, coiling around my legs. I felt a strong tug, pulling me backward. I fought against it, desperation surging through me, but the grip was relentless. "Let go of me," I screamed. But just as quickly as it had started, it stopped, and the shadows retreated back into the darkness. I blinked, disoriented. The clearing was empty. The light had vanished. "Lindsay!" I called again, panic swelling in my chest. I was losing them. I had to move, had to find their voices again. Time was slipping away, and the thought of what could be lurking just out of sight filled me with dread. Then I spotted something on the ground where the light had been. I approached cautiously, and my heart sank as I recognized the piece of clothing, a red jacket. It was one of Lindsay's. I knelt, heart pounding. This was a bad sign. "Lindsay!" I shouted, scanning the area. What did this mean? I had to find her, and quickly. I took off into the darkened woods again, fear bouncing in my chest as the shadows whispered around me. 10 minutes. I had to find them before those seconds ran out. I sprinted deeper into the woods, the darkness wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The chill in the air was so sharp it felt like knives against my skin. I clutched the pendant tighter, hoping it would lead me to my friends or at least offer some protection. My breath came out in quick, visible puffs as panic lanced through my mind. "Lindsay, Sam!" I yelled, my voice echoing back to me, almost mocking in the stillness. Each time I shouted their names, it felt like throwing a lifeline into an abyss. I needed a response, anything to assure me I was not utterly alone. But no sound came. Just the haunting whisper of the wind through the trees, sending another wave of fear crashing over me. And then I heard it, a faint whimper. My heart raced with hope and dread intertwined. "Lindsay?" I called again, adjusting my direction toward the sound. With every move, I felt the shadows creeping closer, as if they were sentient beings, watching, waiting. The whimper grew clearer, slicing through the tension. "Help, please." It was definitely her. Each step felt like a risk, as if I might trip and fall into a pit of despair. I pushed onward, desperation fueling my speed. Finally, I broke through the underbrush and stumbled into another clearing. The sight before me squeezed my heart. A small silver flashlight lay discarded on the ground, its beam bouncing wildly off the trees before flickering out. An empty bottle rolled away as if recently kicked aside. "Lindsay, Sam!" I shouted, scanning every pocket of darkness for a hint of movement. Then I noticed something glinting on the ground. I bent down, and my stomach dropped as I realized what it was. A metallic object that looked like a locket. It was identical to the one Lindsay had worn all the time. Suddenly, an eerie silence fell over me. The wind stopped rustling through the leaves, and the world turned unnaturally still. My skin prickled. I looked around frantically, feeling the weight of the forest pressing in from all sides. It was like time itself had paused, waiting for something to unfold. That's when I saw it, a shadow at the edge of the clearing. It was tall and dark, flickering in and out of focus like a mirage. My heart raced anew, pounding like drums in the silence. I stepped back, instinct screaming at me to run. But I couldn't abandon my friends. "Who's there?" My voice came out weak, barely a whisper against the oppressive quiet. I felt the pendant thrum against my chest, warning me of danger, and everything grew colder. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement, a figure darting behind the trees. Suddenly, the oppressive silence shattered, as a guttural growl erupted from the darkness, sending a jolt of terror through my core. Then, everything went dark. I felt it. The forest consumed by shadows, and in that thick darkness, reality itself seemed to flicker like a dying flame. My breathing quickened, panic clawing at my throat as I felt a presence encircle me, closing in with menacing purpose. "Lindsay," I screamed again, hoping against hope she would answer. But instead, I was met with the deepening dark and the oppressive silence. Some instinct inside me shouted that I had only moments left. I turned to run, but the shadows felt alive, reaching for me. Adrenaline surged, and I vaulted forward, trying to break from the grasp of whatever was waiting in the unseen. In those final seconds before everything went dark, I realized 10 minutes were slipping away faster than I had ever imagined. I stumbled blindly in the darkness, the air thick and suffocating. My feet tangled in roots and underbrush, and each moment felt like forever. Whatever was lurking in the shadows was closing in, and I could feel its presence, a weight against my back. I fought against the panic surging through me. I had to focus. "Lindsay, Sam." The names fell from my lips, desperate cries against an indifferent void. I strained my ears for any sound, any hint of my friends, but all I got was the echo of my own voice swallowed by the forest. I ducked under a low-hanging branch and darted left, hoping to find my way back to where I'd last seen them. As I moved, the pendant around my neck throbbed, its energy almost electric against my skin. I remembered the stories about this place, how the woods were alive with spirits, dark beings that fed off fear. Was that what was hunting me now? Just then, a sudden crack echoed through the trees, sharp and jarring. I froze, my heart pounding violently in my chest. The sound came again, followed by a faint whisper, almost drowned out by the rustling leaves. "Help!" It was definitely Lindsay. My gut twisted at the sound, a mix of relief and dread. I ran toward the voice, cutting through the branches that clawed at me. "Lindsay, where are you?" The whispers faded and I skidded to a stop in a small hollow. To my left, I glimpsed a flash of movement, a figure darting between the trees. My breath hitched. Was it Lindsay? Or something else? "Lindsay, it's me!" I shouted, but my voice cracked, fear creeping back in. I fought to calm myself, but panic was clawing at my mind. Where was Sam? Where was that growl? The shadows shifted. I turned, scanning the area, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. The moment I glanced away, I felt it. A cold breath on my neck. My blood ran cold. Someone or something was right behind me. Before I could think, I spun around. Nothing. Just empty darkness. But the hairs on my arms stood on end, and I knew I wasn't alone. I had to find my friends. I couldn't let whatever it was take me down as well. I took a shaky step back, clenching my fists. "If you're here, show yourself." I was surprised at the strength in my voice. I stepped forward, refusing to let fear consume me. But just when I thought I was regaining control, the ground beneath me shifted, giving way to a steep slope. I lost my footing and tumbled down. The soft thud of my body hitting the ground was nothing compared to the fury of swirling shadows above me. I scrambled to get back up, my pulse racing. When I finally steadied myself, a sickening realization sank in. The pendant flickered dimly, the last light before all was cast into darkness. In the faint glimmers of hope, I could see something lying ahead. It was a phone. Not mine. I recognized the case. Sam's. Just as I reached for it, a deep growl rumbled from behind. I froze, my heart in my throat. This time, whatever darkness was closing in was not waiting for me to escape. I inhaled sharply, adrenaline kicking in again. I had to move fast, 10 minutes or less. I grabbed the phone, pointing its cracked screen toward the growling shadows. I had to show them I wasn't afraid. But the moment I did, the shadows surged forward, and I realized this wasn't over yet. I was running out of time. As I clutched Sam's phone, my thoughts raced. It felt heavy in my hand, like a lifeline in a storm. I quickly swiped the screen, praying for any sign of life, but the battery icon flickered with despair. Then I heard it again, the soft rustle of leaves and the low growl that seemed to pulse from the darkness itself. I took a deep breath and forced my shaky legs to retreat from the shadows, but every instinct screamed at me to run. I glanced behind me, expecting to see whatever was stalking me just a breath away. But still, nothing. Just shadows shifting and the chilling silence of the forest. "Lindsay, Sam," I called again, my voice a frantic whisper. I could feel the cold sweat pooling under my clothes. I needed to find them. If they were nearby, they'd hear me. But doubt gnawed at me. What if I was alone? What if they were already lost to this darkness? I reluctantly turned my eyes back to the phone. Time was of the essence. I dug through the messages looking for any clue about where they might have gone. My fingers trembled. "Come on," I muttered, desperate for answers. Then I noticed a thread of recent messages. Sam had texted about a clearing nearby, a place they had wanted to explore for night photography. That's it. My heart quickened. I wasn't too far from where they had last been. With one last glance back into the shadows, I took off, determined to reach the clearing. The ground was slippery, and roots snaked out like claws, trying to grab at my feet. Each uneven step felt like a gamble with fate. The weight of the pendant grew warmer against my chest. I could feel it pulsing in rhythm with my racing heart. I squeezed through a dense thicket and into a small clearing. Moonlight bathed the area, turning it almost dreamlike, but eerily quiet. "Lindsay, Sam," I shouted, but my voice lacked the confidence it once had. I could feel the shadows still lurking at the edges, threatening to swallow me whole. And then I spotted something. Just in front of a large tree stump I saw an outline. My breath caught. Was it a figure? I rushed forward, but as I did, the shape faded into darkness, leaving only the trees and their twisted branches behind. "Hello?" I called again, but the silence returned thicker than before. Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. A chill descended and the rustling noise began again, this time closer. My heart raced. The forest was no longer indifferent. It was alive with danger. I stepped back, adrenaline surging as I felt trapped. That's when I heard it. High-pitched laughter echoing, cruel and mocking, voices. Panic clawed at me. I darted back toward the thicket, thinking I'd escape whatever horror lay ahead. But stumbling forward, I crashed into something solid. I looked up to find a dark silhouette blocking my path. "Let me go!" I shouted, backing away, dread pooling in my stomach. The figure stepped forward, and just as the shadows seemed to close in, the pendant around my neck flared with light. The growl from before erupted behind me. I had less than 10 minutes. Whatever lay within this forest, they were closing in fast, and I was about to find out just how quickly the darkness could strike. The figure loomed closer, and I had no time to think. The pendant pulsed again, casting a soft glow against the darkened form. I could barely make out the features of a girl, but her face was obscured by the shadows, a grin stretching unnaturally wide across her lips. "Why are you out here all alone?" she taunted, her voice dripping with malice. "Where are my friends?" I managed to stammer, every muscle in my body tensed like a coiled spring. The mocking laughter echoed again, and I felt the pull of nausea in my gut. "Lost, maybe," she replied, tilting her head and stepping even closer. I could see now her eyes glinted almost animalistic. They danced with a hunger I couldn't comprehend. Before I could react, the growl echoed again, deeper this time, vibrating through the ground beneath me. My mind raced. I had to decide, stay and confront the chilling reality, or flee into the unknown. I took a step back, and suddenly the laughter ceased. The girl's expression morphed into something dark and predatory. "You should go," she said softly, her smile tightening with wicked glee. "Before they find you." I turned and darted into the thicket, branches clawing at my skin. Behind me, I could hear her quick steps following, a dance of mockery in the dark. "You think you can escape?" she teased, her laughter fading with distance. Heart pounding, I scrambled into the dense forest, erratic breaths filling my lungs. I could feel the energy from the pendant growing stronger, a beacon amidst the approaching storm. "Sam! Lindsay!" I yelled again, desperation lacing every word. I burst through a cluster of trees and found myself back in another clearing. This one felt larger, but more ominous. The shadows stretched like fingers towards me, beckoning. My senses screamed that I should go back, but I was drawn, compelled by the desperation to find my friends. One direction I saw a flicker of movement, a shape dashing between the trees. "Is that you?" I called, but nothing responded. My own voice echoed back at me, bouncing off the forest walls. A shrill laugh rang out again, closer this time, as if it were circling me like a predator. The weight of my fear pressed down, thick and suffocating. I looked down at the phone in my hand, the screen still glowing, illuminating a text thread from Sam. "We'll meet at the big oak by the stream." My heart sank as I realized I didn't even know where the stream was. Panic surged again. Time was slipping away. Then, just as I was about to turn back, the shadows shifted again, and something big loomed at the edge of the clearing. I squinted, heart racing. An enormous wolf-like creature stepped into the moonlight, eyes gleaming, fixated on me. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a myth. It had come to life, and it wasn't alone. Glancing around, I saw figures emerging from the darkness, encircling me. My mind screamed that I was out of time, out of options. That's when I noticed something glinting in the dirt beneath me. A small silver object, oddly familiar. It was Sam's camera. I picked it up, envisioning the faces of my friends through its lens. They were still out there somewhere. With the creature inching closer and the figures closing in, I knew I had to make a choice. I held the camera tightly, mustering every ounce of courage left, as a primal growl emanated from the shadowy beings. The next few moments would decide our fate. Would it be their claws or our memories? I took a deep breath and readied myself to fight, or run, as the darkness closed in. The air felt different the moment the shadows began to close in. My heart raced as the wolf-like creature stepped forward, its glistening eyes boring into mine. It growled low, the sound reverberating through the clearing, vibrating in my bones. I gripped Sam's camera tightly, a futile comfort against the terror surrounding me. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice breaking the stillness, the fight inside me igniting despite the paralyzing fear. "If you want me, then let them go." The words fell from my lips, but I was unsure who I was pleading to, the predator or the unseen force that shadowed it. The shadows hesitated briefly, the figures drifting in pause as if considering my proposition. I scanned the forest frantically, praying for some sign, any sign, of my friends. But all I saw were dark silhouettes, waiting and watching, the air thick with hunger. "Help!" I called again, desperation clawing in my throat. It echoed in the night, a cry for solidarity against an unseen enemy. "Lindsay! Sam!" The wolf-like creature let out a howl, sharp and chilling, a call that sent the shadows swirling into a frenzy. They resumed their movement, inching closer, and that was when I noticed something amidst the chaos. One figure, not entirely obscured, took a step forward out of the shadows, revealing a familiar face. Lindsay. "Let her go," I shouted, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. "Help. Please," she whimpered, her eyes glazed and distant. I felt my heart wrench at the sight. No, I couldn't lose her. Not like this. The dark figure closest to her chuckled, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. "She's ours now, and soon you will be too." "No," I screamed. Without thinking, I raised Sam's camera, a ridiculous weapon in a time of desperation, and snapped a picture. The flash erupted in a brilliant light that cut through the darkness, momentarily illuminating the encroaching figures. The wolf recoiled, snarling at the sudden burst of brightness. The shadows screamed, the sound a sickly symphony of fury as they retreated, and I seized the moment. "Lindsay!" I pleaded again, rushing forward toward her. I could hear the shadows swirling behind me, but I had to reach her. Had to find Sam. As I reached for her, something invisible seemed to tug at my very being, yanking me back. Panic surged anew. I wasn't sure how much longer I could fight whatever this force was, but I couldn't give up. I looked around frantically. "Lindsay, hold on to me," I shouted, desperate to break whatever hold they had on her. I extended my hand, fingertips brushing against hers. A spark of connection ignited. Suddenly, the pendant draped around my neck pulsed with energy, illuminating the space around me again. I felt its warmth spreading within me, calming the tempest within. "Stay with me," I urged. In that moment, I felt Lindsay's grip tighten around my hand, a flicker of lucidity returning to her eyes. "I'm here," she yelled, and together we turned to face the darkness, a united front against the unknown. The shadows recoiled slightly, hesitating, and for just a heartbeat I felt as though we had reclaimed some power. But the moment passed too quickly. Just as the wolf lunged forward again, ready to strike, the unified force of the shadows surged back, enveloping the clearing. I prepared for the worst, squeezing her hand tightly, and without thinking, a deeper instinct took over. "You will not take us!" I shouted, heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. I raised the camera once more, but before I could take another shot, a deep growl rocked through the air. It was almost as if the forest itself responded to my challenge. The ground trembled beneath us, trees swaying in resonance with the growl. The shadows merged into a singular force, coiling around us but faltering against the light emitted from the pendant. Without warning, the darkness started to swirl faster, being drawn toward the energy exuding from me, the pendant pulling and tugging at the very essence of what these shadows were composed of. "Lindsay, we have to push through," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. She nodded, determination set in her eyes. Together we began to move forward, focused on a single point, the dark figures fading into the growing light. I turned the camera towards the swirling shadows and clicked the shutter. The flash burst forth once more, illuminating the clearing fully, and the shadows screamed in agony, retreating as the light washed over everything we held dear. But just then, I felt another pull stronger than before. The force sought to separate us one last time. "No!" I yelled. "We're together!" With one final flicker of light, the shadows disintegrated, unraveling into the night. The wolf-like creature let out one last mournful howl before it was swept away. I felt a rush as warmth enveloped me, and everything took a sudden shift. The brightness glimmered for just a fraction longer, revealing a fleeting glimpse of Sam and other friends, looking on with confused faces. Then darkness descended. An overwhelming silence washed over the moment. When the world returned, I found myself lying on cool, damp grass, the sky above speckled with stars. I sat up, heart still racing. I was alone, but the air felt different, lighter. The forest was quiet. "Lindsay," I called, my voice hoarse. The echoes returned empty in the stillness. I stood scanning the area desperately, but the memory of their laughter was all that remained. I looked down to find the pendant still clutched tightly in my hand, a flicker of warmth still radiating from it. Whatever had happened, it had saved us. Or maybe it wasn't finished yet. Days turned into weeks, but I never spoke of that night. I sometimes hear whispers in the wind, hear laughter at the back of my mind, and I can't help but feel as if I haven't truly escaped the grasp of the forest. I moved across the country afterward, to a city where the shadows don't creep as closely. But sometimes late at night when the world is quiet, I remember their faces and wonder if the forest still waits, just beyond the veil of perception, lingering like a half-remembered dream.